Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're really happy to have Ava back on this breakout session so that we can answer questions, or she can help answer questions. And it's on the finances, on managing the intricacies of behind the scenes of running a village. And as you got to see where it's, there are a lot of questions. So Ava, and then you unfortunately got diverted. So I think I would say we'll put it to the floor on questions that you might have on your particular village questions. Again, I think Ava will answer as best as she can, and the group can also pitch in to assist where there are gaps. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I am open to anything we want to discuss regarding the presentation that was abruptly disrupted.
Well, one of the questions I think we were talking about was, and I feel for you, Ava, with that year of, you must have been tearing your hair out, not being able to access information with your treasurer's accounts, etc. But then also there was some discussion towards the end of the session about GuideStar and doing QuickBooks. So you are using GuideStar. You have gone to the cloud.
We have, and one thing that I think it has not been mentioned yet here, what happened when our volunteer treasurer suddenly died, another aspect that we were hit really badly with was she had most of the stuff on her home computer, and we did have hard copies and files, but I do remember this now because this was kind of nightmarish. She had a bunch of passwords to city agencies, to all kinds of things that we didn't have access to. They were on her computer. So I think after just going through pages and pages of files, we started finding passwords to get into accounts. And that also included bank accounts. So I would highly recommend you centralize your passwords if you have one person working on your books. That took a while. I'm remembering now because we had with the DC government, suddenly we started getting letters regarding unemployment insurance for former employees. And we had an account with them, but we didn't know how to access it. And to change the account, it was all under her name and her ID and her phone number. And it took someone, I think, on our finance committee to go down to the DC office to make all the changes to show that she had died. I forgot about that, those passwords that one person had access to. That's completely changed now. We have a whole system set up. But yeah, when you have one person that's doing that for so long, there's a lot of things that they have in there. That's what I meant about institutional memory. She had a lot of stuff in her head, and she had a lot of stuff on stickies, and she had a lot of handwritten notes. So we were piecing everything together. And, we emerged fine eventually, but it did take a lot because it was a very scattered operation. And she was a volunteer, and she did one heck of a job while she was the treasurer, but we didn't think she would just abruptly die like that. So
and one of the things that I'm noticing too, not just on financials, is the accounts are tied into now everyone's cell phones. And this is a problem when even though it's a professional relationship, that somebody who's taking a role has to give their personal cell phone account. And just this past week, yet again, even though I retired as an executive director of a village last year, they still were trying to untime the account to my cell phone, where the passcodes were being to verify that the proper person, anyway, it's still going. And that was from the fall, from September. And we're still trying to untangle these linkages. So it's very hard. It's a very, very hard system to manage.
That's a perfect example, because actually when we would try to access the system, the one phone call, one number they were using was her landline. That had been disconnected. Yes, that's exactly. She was the land, because she was accessing it. We weren't at the time. Right. Mm-hmm.
So that's tough.
I would be interested in, at some point, knowing what other villages have used or success stories of compiling all this information to pass it down from, person to person, because we have the same thing. We have multiple people who have access to multiple, password. Let's just take Zoom account for an example. One person creates the Zoom account and has to put their own email and a password, and they share that. And if somebody else wants to use that, they can't remember the passcode, so they change the passcode, and now we're all changing different passcodes, and different people have access to it. So if there's a system that people have out there, I don't think it's the right forum right now, but it kind of goes under the same category of, where does all this information live, so that there's an accountability going on and it can be passed down.
That's a great question. In for the DuPont Circle Village, for the financial codes, they're with myself and our treasurer. The other ones, like you're talking about Zoom, that's definitely with the admin. But if anything were to happen there, I know how to access a computer. But yes, it is not in one. It should be in one place, frankly. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
And I think one of the things that Ross had brought up was that transition that during COVID, Ava, your organization is certainly way beyond this, moved, and that's why we did the stages 1, 2, and 3, is that they moved to the cloud, because the old format was checks. One person takes control of the checks and keeps them locked up. Now you don't do that. People aren't using that. I found that to be an easier way of keeping an eye on the accounts, on what's being spent each month, because it's compiled in one document. So I migrated everything to our automatic, to our credit card, so that things were automatically charged each month, rather than having somebody have to physically write a check or manually.
How do you pay a contractor with the credit card?
That one, we didn't. That one we had our treasurer who would then create, and she was online banking, and so she was able to create that. I was not able to do that. Again, we have to have the transparency, so we would have myself as the executive director. We had created a system where I would look at the expenses and approve them and account for them, approve it, the board, my board chair, all three of us sort of reconciling on one document, on one email, so that everything was clear.
And then did you get receipts, or did you attach receipts somehow, or have another verification system? We
attached receipts. It was laborious. It took time, attaching. Yeah.
Well, we still do that. I write 4 checks a month, and they are to 4 contractors. They're programming people. They're our yoga instructor. They're Feldenkrais, and then the third one is for our meditation. And it's the same amount but I still write the checks. They are not set up in any kind of bill pay because they're so small. They're individuals. And so, we should probably be shifting over, because that all happened during COVID. I would just write those same checks every month, and I still do that. And it's funny because we haven't given those particular duties of writing checks to our bookkeeper. I do those 4 checks, but she does all the others. She does everything online. That needs to be done online. She makes sure that things are paid that we can do online. So there is one, I still do write a little bit of checks myself.
I do have a quick question about how do you know when it's time to hire a bookkeeper? Do you do it based on your annual revenue or your annual, your account? Or because I thought for some reason there was a threshold that at some threshold then you were supposed to have a bookkeeper or something like that, but maybe I misunderstood. This was from another meeting that I was at. Is it just a personal decision that you can get a bookkeeper or a professional bookkeeper whenever you feel like you need it? Or do you have to reach some sort of financial threshold before it's recommended that you do that?
I don't know the answer to that question. I just know that we shifted when we realized that everything needed to be actually online. And our volunteer did not know how to do that. Yeah. And so we hired somebody.
I think, Sarah, I don't know that there's a magic number. But my organization, it's about 120,000 budget. There was time for us to move to a bookkeeper that last year because it was just too much. As you heard, it's 10 hours, 12, it can be 10 hours a week for the treasurer to be doing that. And it depends on your treasurer and what they're willing to do and what your board is willing to do, on how comfortable they are in doing that.
And we have a contract person that every month before the board meetings, they get, the statements are sent to her and then she prepares the financial reports. But it seems like the bookkeeping job is kind of a monthly, like that one gentleman was saying, 8 hours a week, basically, that he spends on bookkeeping, that it needs to be more of a monthly job, not just a once a month job. To me, it seems that way. And I'm new, so I don't know a lot about the bookkeeping aspect of villages, but just to me, it seems like it's more of you need someone monthly to be going through the accounts and all of that, not just preparing financial reports at the end of the month. If I'm making sense, I might not even be making sense, but.
I had a question that I put in the chat. This is Shelley, Eastrick Village. Do you, Eva, do you do a retainer for your bookkeeping, or do you do it hourly? And the same with other consultants. How do you manage it?
For our bookkeeper, she's hourly. She's very reasonable. As a matter of fact, our finance person is always shocked that she charges us so little. For other contractors, that they're hourly as well. That's right. Every single one is hourly.
So they send in tracking forms on their hours?
Oh, yes. No, they send in an invoice. And with the classes they've performed or they've taught, and she sends me, she actually doesn't send in a monthly invoice. I get something every couple months from her, Trish. She does she can do, I mean, we've gone beyond. I think we're one of 4 villages that use her. I got her from another village. But she does other things like she can help villagers with their taxes, things like that. And people ask for that a lot. And I always say, our bookkeeper is willing to help you. So she has a nice little business because of the villages she works with.
Thank you.
Susan.
Can I say something? Let me get rid of this. That's actually what position I'm in. I'm a self-employed bookkeeper, and I have been for many years. And I took on the role. I'm a volunteer for our village as the treasurer, amongst other things. And to answer Sarah's question, in my opinion, I think it depends first on the level of expertise of the person that's handling your finances. And I think it also depends on the volume of transactions that you have each month, whether or not to go to a professional person. So there's all different levels, and I think you have to really look at what's involved for your particular village to decide whether it's something, and whether your financial situation can handle hiring somebody. Everybody's, every village is different. So you have to kind of analyze your situation and everything that goes into it, and then decide whether it's something your board wants to spend money on. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I think Chris had a question earlier.
Burning Tree Village, if I can say something, we're an all volunteer organization, and our treasurer just announced that he's having open heart surgery. So we do have other people that have done it in the past, but it's definitely problematic. Having a backup and maybe even hiring somebody is probably what we may need to do.
Actually, that's a good point in that it's often hard to get a treasurer. So somebody to take on the role because they're like, oh, I don't want to touch the money. I'm more about the mission. And so if you're able to present the treasurer's role without a heavy load of number crunching, they're more apt to take that responsibility on, as long as they're macro eyes looking at things and making sure that the numbers add up. I'm sorry, Chris, you were going to say something.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I guess we're in a situation, we're a very small village. Our budget's under $20,000, operating expenses, although we have had some grants that are basically passed through. And we've gone to QuickBooks online in the cloud, which is great. I was our treasurer for 2 years as I learned QuickBooks, which was, I smiled a little bit when somebody said how user-friendly it is. Yes, there is a learning curve, pretty steep one. And now I've recently swapped positions. Our former board chair is now that she agreed to be treasurer if I agreed to be board chair. So we've swapped. So it is good. We have two of us who know the system, but I also think we're at a point where it would be good for us to hire a bookkeeper, but we've been talking about how the relationship then between the treasurer and the bookkeeper works so that you're really freeing up your treasurer if they also have to download and provide all the information that your bookkeeper needs. So I don't know if you can talk about sort of what your relationship is, those of you who are using bookkeepers, between your treasurer and your bookkeeper. And has it really freed up your treasurer to do other kinds of things for your organization? I mean, going after grants, for instance, or working more in that area.
I can speak to that. Our treasurer is, the relationship with the bookkeeper is entirely an oversight position. So he is not involved. And this is actually once a month when she produces the reports. She does all the day-to-day stuff. He doesn't have anything to do with that. What he does that she doesn't have to do is he and I put together the budget. And if we need something, we can definitely have her weigh in. But their relationship, because we have hired someone professionally, is very limited now. It used to be that because the treasurer was a volunteer, there was a lot more interaction with this, but having a professional, everything has been shifted to her. So besides the oversight and the some feedback on the reporting at the end of the month, there's very little. She will ask him some questions, but it's very, far and few and far between.
Mm-hmm. So you would trust that person with all your account information, access to your accounts, paying bills,
absolutely,
because it's a professional relationship.
Well, like I said, we got her from another village, and there's like 4 of us using her now. Yes, she comes when she needs documentation for bills. She's from Gaithersburg. She comes into DC about once a month, and we just give her everything, and everything is scanned and she uploads it. But stuff like that. But yeah, our treasurer doesn't have a lot. There's not a lot of interaction between the two.
Okay.
Except during the audit.
Right.
When we do have the audit, she questions a lot of, she is not a CPA. She is a bookkeeper, and she will include him in any conversations with the auditors, because he probably can answer it better than she will if they came back.
Okay. Thank you.
I actually have to hop off, and I can't tell you how helpful this was. So truly appreciate being able to participate in the breakout session plus the main event. But I hope you all have a good week, and maybe I'll see you at some point in the future.
Sarah, what village are you in?
Mount Vernon at home.
Oh, okay.
I started the middle of February, so it's kind of my just finishing my second month. So,
Wonderful.
So,
And
but thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
well, you have two of the program committee members on this call, and we're looking to hopefully start live and do some sort of hybrid, hopefully in the fall. So we'll see what happens with COVID. No promises. We're going along as the pandemic evolves. So other questions?
I would like to request or make a suggestion. I think somebody, Mary Jo may have brought it up, but I think a session on how to convert from whatever your existing system is, bookkeeping system, to QuickBooks Online would be very helpful. I'm familiar with how to use QuickBooks Online, but I've never actually done the initial conversion part. So if that's something that we can arrange, would be great. Would be very helpful.
Whose dog is that, Lori?
Here we go.
Not my dog, I'm at work.
I just muted it. One of the things that if you aren't, one of the things that I liked, which helped put everything in before you do QuickBooks, if you're in a transition period and you're not wanting to do QuickBooks, but getting a business account and having one credit card. Again, that consolidates a lot of the expenses so that you can visualize it every month. And most everybody now accepts a credit card. And so that was, I actually liked that at the monthly reconciliation, because at the end that statement comes, it's all there and packaged for you. So that was easier.
I agree, absolutely. We that reconciliation with our credit card, and we do pay a lot of bills with the credit card.
I'm curious, we recently, I would say last October, November, we went to a new website. And one of the things we did on our website was allow people to pay their membership dues with PayPal. So we now have a PayPal account, and I'm curious if anybody else uses PayPal for anything, and as opposed to say a credit card or something else, because it has brought another level of I would say just complexity into the bookkeeping. Now you don't just have a checking and a savings, but you have a PayPal account that money comes into automatically, and you have to transfer that money to your checking account, and you have to track the money, and you have to reconcile it and all of that. So I was just curious if anyone else has been using PayPal for anything.
Yes, Susan, Hyattsville Aging in Place uses PayPal same way you do, and we have to do exactly what you've just said. You have to track it, you have to transfer the money into your checking account. Of course, you have a fee that you pay on each transaction, so you have to decide how you're going to manage that. And then at this point, since we don't have a bookkeeper, our treasurer enters that information, each of those donations into QuickBooks, and then we acknowledge them actually by hand. And that's something I would love if we could automate, but we do provide a letter then to each person for those donations. So it does add another level of effort to your work, but it is nice for people to be able to use. We do get consistent donations. We've set it up so that people can have recurring donations monthly, which is a really nice thing as well.
We're about to set that up with our website, where we can do automatic membership renewals every year. So it will do it automatically, and people don't have to, to send in their check or to do it by PayPal every year. And I was going to say that our website, and I'm not the website person, but we have been able to set up standard letters for people that are either new to joining, and we have 2 levels of membership, so we have different letters for each, and we can, and that's something I do, since I process the payments coming in, I see when somebody is paid, then I can just go to the website and select them and send this automatic thank you letter to them. So it might be something to explore doing through your website if you can.
What about, do you either of you have a database that can do this?
No, we've been evaluating, changing from the mechanical way, because I'm also the membership director. So I have several roles. And when we first started, I started everything in Excel, and we've been doing everything in Excel in tracking our membership and the information that we want to gather and keep from year to year about how our village is doing. And so for the last 3 years, we've been going around in circles trying to village or one of the other village-oriented database systems, and we just have not made that the focus of our attention, especially with COVID in the last 2-3 years. But so right now everything is done sort of in different places, and I reconcile all of the different things. I reconcile, and I don't know who said it, but they said don't use Quicken. I actually am using Quicken to do our accounting. And it's working out okay. I can get reports that I need to help me reconcile with my membership data information and with my budget information. But it is very time consuming and tedious. So that is another area that we are looking to change, hopefully. But having this website has helped to automate some of our things. So that's been very helpful as well.
The only reason I ask is because we are one of the few DC villages that hasn't jumped on the bandwagon of switching our database, which we use Club Express. Everybody has switched over to Helpful Village because we find the transactions that we do for membership renewals, everything is just seamless. And we've always done it that way. And it was just worth sticking with this, with our database because of that. Everything, it's, it's just gotten so much easier over time, and we just don't want to have to do that migration at all. But it does that. It sends out letters. It does everything. I can alter letters. I can add people's names. I mean, it's become seamless basically for any kind of membership renewal. And of course, we use it for any donations. We use it for our fundraisers as well.
So Ava, have you integrated Club Express with your financial systems then?
No.
You don't upload the data from Club Express to like Quicken or QuickBooks?
No, no, that is one thing we have not done.
Okay. We've been flirting with using QuickBooks Online for a while, but haven't gone to that yet. And that's one thing that Club Express advertises is that the integration with QuickBooks.
Is that something that Club Express has that Helpful Village doesn't have? If anybody knows?
I don't know if
the integration with QuickBooks.
I don't know if Helpful Village has it.
That's a really good question. I have no idea, but yeah.
Because when we were initially looking at Helpful Village, and I'm not trying to switch the topic here, but I had some reservations just because we're a small village, but we're also one of the villages that divides our geographic area into zones. And we wanted to be able to track information by zones. I know that Bannockburn Village did something similar in the early days. So what I found was that Helpful Village, at least back when we were initially looking at them, was not set up to help us keep that information by zone. They were more set up to look at the whole, village as one.
Yeah, and I think and you're saying Club Express could. I think we used to do that on Club Express, but we never used it.
Erica, what village are you with, or were you with?
I was with Chevy Chase at Home.
Chevy, okay.
Yeah, And I found, like Ava said, it sort of was seamless. If you got a donation, you could automate it. You write one letter and then a standard letter, and it would automatically get shot out as soon as somebody went online and made a donation. Or if a check came in, we would manually log it in the system. And then if there was an email associated with that account, it would send out a notice. If we coded it for that, you have to do a lot of coding in the back. But then I like to also do a physical hard copy letter, a thank you letter, personalized letter. And so depending on the timelines and I would have to manually just plug all the information in and download the data and create a letter program and send it out. Again, it's all, this stuff is all time consuming, but that's what happens with nonprofits in this process. When you're doing fundraising, membership, all this stuff is laborious. So are there any questions on compliance? On what people should be setting up? Nothing there. Okay.
I don't know that I had a question as much as just to say that when I was treasurer, and we had one consultant who was working with this contractor, and trying to figure out how to give him a 1099, how to file the 990, all of those things, and especially when you're a very small organization and the IRS wants you to do things through their automated system and you don't really know how to do that. And you're wondering, can I do these by hand? Will they be accepted? Buying the forms, it's a challenge. So more and more, I think going with the professional bookkeeper to help us with those things is really where we want to go. Even for a small organization, there are things that are just really challenging for volunteers to figure out.
I agree. That is exactly, I just get copies of the 1099s, but I know, that she has sent them out to them. She's done all the compliance that is required. Yeah, we don't have to, I know she'll do it. Yeah. I wouldn't either know what to do either, how to get them to them.
Yeah, I mean, in Maryland, we also have, some monthly reports we have to do to the state to maintain nonprofit status, and things we're required to report on, even though you're basically putting a 0 in the whole way through the report because you're not really having any sales, but that if you don't do, the state comes back to you. There's just a lot of tracking of that kind of information. Is it all being done? And the different dates that things are due. It's not all due at the end of the year. Some things are due 5 months after you close your books. It's a lot. And we have, when I turned it treasurer over to when we switched roles with our former board chair, I inherited a binder with some information, but I made sure that I had given her all the things that you all have been talking about, with all the passwords, with all the monthly procedures, what's due when, so that and I have it online obviously too, but so that when the bus hits the two of us, there would be somebody who could pick up. And we also have a person who volunteered, who's kind of our backup with QuickBooks. So she's somebody who lives in Hyattsville. She does it professionally for another nonprofit, but didn't want to we tried to get her on our board, but we couldn't. But so when I'm stuck with QuickBooks, I email her, and in a day or two, she comes back with a solution for us. So, I think there's still a role for some volunteer help, but I'm moving more and more to persuade our board that we want to spend the money to hire a bookkeeper.
And on board recruitment, I mean, looking for certain qualities, certain skill sets when we're doing our board recruitment, that's helpful. Not just having people who are motivated on a mission, who are good-hearted, but really thinking, okay, this person I know does PR or did PR. Let's educate this person on our mission and try and recruit her or him, rather than this is somebody I already know who's in our pond, and then pull that person in. But I think one of the things that we're going to have to start doing is, okay, I know there's an accountant down the street or a former accountant. Let's go and start reeling this individual in to see if we can get their professional assistance, maybe pro bono, or just as somebody when we have like, for example, when you had the property, Ava, I'm sure that took weeks of discussion on what to do, whether to accept or not, and what the implications are. And you had to get professional assistance, and somebody who knew something about this area might have been, you could just pull them in. They may not be officially involved with the village, but peripherally that you could use their expertise. So having different people with different skill sets around you that you can reel in.
Yeah, we actually resorted, strangely enough, in DC, we only have one lawyer on our board. And the mix is all varied, but we pulled in someone with a real estate background. He's not a realtor like selling houses, but it's Kane and Associates. They lease a lot of realty in a lot of buildings in DuPont, and he's become our treasurer actually. But yes, that he was key to that whole situation. He recommended, we had someone go look at the land. We had to hire an architect. Nobody had worked with architects, in 50 years when they bought their homes. And so, yes, having those different skill sets is key we had not thought of going after any kind of business people, and we started to because of, we just needed a mix. It was mostly just a lot of the founders that lived in the neighborhood. But yeah, we had to really broaden we started going after younger people for sustainability purposes. We started, yeah, actually some of them still work. So that was, we had a whole recruitment for the board, and that was one of the tranches that we were looking at, were some younger people still working that eventually could step into more leadership roles when they stopped, but business people.
And it was good for us to have a lawyer in the background. I mean, not officially. I mean, we've got people who are retired, but it's people who are in the system, because when a specific issue comes up, just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean that you know everything about. It's all niche, right? It's all specialty. So they could say, "Oh, I know so-and-so is a specialist in that field." So they would go and confer and come back for us. So that was helpful. Nancy, were you going? Yeah.
Can I ask, do you all do regular strategic planning, or have you done strategic planning, and was it helpful?
Well, there is the strategic planning initiative that's been going on in Montgomery County.
Yeah,
is that what you're tying that in with, Nancy?
Yes, actually, and because our village is an all volunteer model, and we've had some transition issues with, an ongoing board of, there's some people that have been involved for a long time, that I feel like we really need it, because I've been involved with strategic planning in other organizations where I've been a volunteer or employed in the past. So I thought it might be helpful, but it's expensive.
It is expensive.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nancy,
Yes.
what village are you? What's
Burning Tree Village.
Burning Tree. Are you in Maryland, in Montgomery County?
We're in Maryland. We're actually the oldest village in Maryland.
Okay, so if you get in touch with Aviv.
Oh yeah, I know Pizit very well. Yeah.
Have you been involved in the? Did you listen to the presentation given by Michael Feinstein?
Yeah, we did. In fact, he's going to talk to our board tonight.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, he's talking to our board in June.
Yeah,
I was just going to suggest that.
But we have a very small budget, and it would be very expensive. And I just wondered if other villages had done it and if they found value in it.
We've done 2 strategic plans while I've been the executive director. I've been here 6 years. We do them in 3 years at a time. Yes, it can be expensive. We tried to get a pro bono facilitator, because that's what's expensive. You get someone that's going to help you really and keep you on point with the whole board there. There's a lot of ideas thrown around, but they have been very helpful. And the number one question that we have addressed twice, and we still haven't answered it, is how big do we want to get? Because we have been approached by neighboring, the village movement in everywhere is just growing. And so we're approached by neighborhoods surrounding us that they want to start a village. They don't want to start a village. They want a village. They want all the bonuses of having a village, but they don't want to do the legwork like setting up a 501c3. So we are up against Foggy Bottom, Weston, Georgetown, Cleveland Woodley Park, and Mount Pleasant. But to the west of us, the nearest village is Capitol Hill. So we have neighborhoods like Shaw and Logan Circle approaching the villages trying to get pulled in. And they guarantee, one guy, the ANC guy from Logan told me he could bring in at least, 30 different members. But our board, the biggest question during strategic planning is, first of all, because we are based on a volunteer service, do we want to go out that far? Are these people that just want to join the village for various reasons? Are they going to produce the volunteers as well? And how big do you want to get? Right now we're at 260 and there's a lot, like we have to limit some of our programming and things like that. So strategic planning has been very helpful, but that has been one of the questions we have not been able to resolve because there's so many opinions, and that's when the moderator has been very helpful. And we are planning another one. This one ends this year, and so we will probably have another one a year from now.
And
Thank you.
I would say that just in the literature, my research background, the one thing with nonprofits and financial performance is, this is some of my research, is strategic planning. It's really more strategic visioning. And if you have leadership that looks on the macro, then you will be, your outcomes you will be financially more successful. So how that plays out is, again, it's a mindset, but getting all of your board together to agree on, creating and defining what your focus is, how you're going to do it. That process in itself is very valuable. And I've talked to many people, executive directors or individuals who have tried to do this on their own, because again, it's expensive. It really is, the bang is in your facilitator and how much your members and individuals put into it. But also what happens is you can do all that and get gold standard everywhere. But then once a document is produced, it just gets put on a shelf.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
this whole, so there are so many, it's complicated. So just saying, okay, strategic plan, let's go do it. That doesn't mean that you're going to have a successful outcome. It's being very mindful throughout that process. Michael, I think if you're able to, I've met with him, talked with him, we actually pulled him together to present at our last quarterly meeting. Laurie was involved in that, and Carolyn and Mary Jo. I think he's got some really good input and a really good starting point for you. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
And then, just one more thing on strategic planning. The process has changed from when we knew it in the 1980s and 90s. It's a much more abbreviated system. It's not as, the planning is not for 10 years into the future, 8 years into the future. It's much more short term.
This is Mary Jo. I wanted to make a request, which is that all of you do a little bit of thinking about other issues where you would like and appreciate a facilitated discussion, just like this. And please email me, because WAVE schedules these Zoom sessions called Mutual Support. Listen and learn and share. And we want ideas as to what your pain points are. So please feel free to let me know.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Since you're here now, I'll just repeat what I said earlier, because I made a suggestion for another session.
Okay.
And that is, there's been so much talk about converting from whatever your existing financial packages that you're using to QuickBooks Online.
Oh.
And I would love to have a session on making that initial transition from whatever your existing software or method of doing your bookkeeping is to QuickBooks Online.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
And I think on that, we are getting at the point where it's nearly noon.
Wow.
So are there any other questions before we sign off? And
I have one that's totally unrelated because I didn't get an answer to it in my chat. Ross Harmery, what village is he with?
Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant, thank you.
any other questions? Well, thank you so much. And Ava, thank you so much. We
No,
really
you're very
appreciated
welcome.
you and all the work that you put on behind the scenes for this too. And also to Carolyn, thank you for stepping in and
Oh, my
assisting.
pleasure.
And
My
yeah,
pleasure.
so much. Okay, well, all of you, we look forward to seeing you at the next meetings. Okay.
Thank you. Good
Goodbye.
session.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Ava.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.